The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the podcast belong solely to the hosts and not the host's past, present, or future employers. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Brian for Breaking Down Security. This week is part one of our show with Mick Douglas. You might know him if you've ever taken a SANS course as one of the SEC 504 incident handler, hacker tools, techniques, exploits, and incident handling, or the SEC 555 SIM with tactical analytics. If you are interested, he's longtime member, has been on several times of the show, and just thought we'd have him back on. This is a couple weeks ago, back when the Okta stuff was going on, Lapsus and Sitel was going on. We reference some of that in this first episode, but the guidance and the items that we bring up during that are still very much applicable, even beyond Sitel and Okta. So we also talk a little bit about logging this week as well. What needs to be logged, what is logged, and there's an initiative that he's working on about What2Log, and there's we'll publish some links to that as well. So hope you enjoy, and be back next week, and we have another 30-minute segment then as well. So hope you enjoy this and have a great week.
Is there anything you'd like to, say or, pitch or anything before you get started here? I'm going to go and find some of your tweet threads here.
Well, while you're doing that, I definitely want to start pushing a project that we've been doing called What2Log.com. That's what, and then the number 2log.com. That's a site where we're trying to build up a recommendation of here's the things that you should start logging. And the reason that I'm pitching that really hard is we did a massive overhaul of this site. It looks the same, but now it's backed by a GitHub repository, meaning that we can receive community input. So nice. If you've got an idea on something that you want logged and how to go about doing that, let us know. You can either put in some code and send it as a request, or you could put in issues, or just tweet at us, like literally whatever. But we're definitely at the point now where we can and are actively looking for community involvement.
Okay, so actually, this sounds pretty good segue here. What kind of things are you talking about logging? Are you just talking about logging from all points, or just OS related items? Because my colleague here does quite a bit with understanding logging and things as well.
Yes.
So
yep.
I was just wondering what you're thinking about there when you're thinking about what to log, or is there a what not to log?
We don't have that yet, and we probably wouldn't ever make that, because the answer is there's probably more that you shouldn't be logging than what you should. I'm a fan of having very laser focused logs. And so right for the moment, we only have OS, but we do want to branch into application and network security devices and network devices, just anything. If it generates a log, we want it to be on this site.
Right.
And what we do is that's a little bit different than other logging resources is we have it broken down by criticality. So, hey, these are the bare minimum. Like if y'all want to be on the dance field, like being for serious about logging, here's some of the things that you need to be doing. And then if you're, wanting to do maybe break fix or troubleshooting, here's some other elements like more aggressive logging. And then we even show here's crazy town type logging. And that might be stuff that you would log when you're actively under attack. And
right.
That way you can right size your logging levels to what makes sense for you.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. So you said
that's a good strategy. Have your tools ready to go, and just log the bare minimum, but if you get attacked or you suspect there's something going on, then you can bump that up.
Yep.
Right. And you can also bump it up to forward to a sim.
Yep.
So maybe all the logs that you need for a pseudo forensic analysis are on the endpoints, but you're just not forwarding them all.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do get an event, you can start forwarding them, and you can go back a week, right, and get all those as well forwarded to a sim. And then you can start correlating those logs and say, okay, I can go back a week now, right, and see when the beginning of the attack was. You may be a day or two in or more, right? So yeah, right. Just send send a command, and then all of a sudden you're starting to forward all the backlogs and enhance logging.
Right.
Yeah, huge fan of doing that approach. Another fun one, and this is way down the road. I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out how to put this in, but we're working on how to do analysis, like just kind of like what you talked about. Is making it so that people have the right thought patterns about like how to process logs. One of my favorite ones that a lot of people look at me kind of sideways is I love to reprocess the logs when they get archived. And the reason why I do that is 90 days ago, it might have been an O day. Now it's known. And so you'd be surprised at how often you can catch stuff that you didn't know about. Now, it's rough, right? You've had that incursion for 90 days, but it's better to catch it 90 days out than never having caught it. And it's kind of cool. If you start getting creative with your logs, you can start telling some real interesting stories.
In what way? You mean like in terms of timeline, or yes, we've been breached, no, we haven't been breached? We're going to talk about some of the Okta stuff, which will obviously come into some of this. But is that what you're talking about, like in terms of timeline, or being able to more definitively say, X happened, Y happened, Z didn't happen, that kind of stuff?
No, I'm talking even more fundamental. I mean, hey, here's this new signature that we've got a couple weeks after the fact. Like here's one that drove me up a wall, right? You folks remember the NotPetya attack?
Right.
Everybody lost their mind on the NotPetya attack. And what drove me up a wall was about a week after, different vendors were like, hey, we detect NotPetya. Well, where were you in the moment of truth, right? You were every bit as running behind everyone else. But you caught it on day +7. Well, cool. You can start doing that post-mortem analysis rather. And it's not ideal, but I'd rather catch it even way after the fact than not catch it at all.
Yeah.
Right.
So like the log4j, we had that signature. I forgot what day of the week it was, but we could go back 1 or 2 days and start seeing the signatures come through in the network, like all these attempts, right? So we knew exactly when they started, at least to our organization, and we didn't have to go back. Well, you look back months, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't see it until that one day. So you're pretty confident you caught everything. If you go back several months and you don't see anything, right, until right at that point, and then it's all over the place,
Exactly.
It's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm looking back. I mean, you've been very active in the last, I don't know, couple of weeks. Apparently getting a bunch of troll DMs, specifically about the Okta stuff. So,
yeah.
What are the troll DMs about? And I have actually something that came across my desk, as normally happens with PR stuff, that I wanted to ask you about and read out later. But what are they trolling you on? I mean, it's like you're talking about Okta breach, which actually occurred. What are they trolling you about?
Well, so first of all, I don't understand. I don't like feeding the trolls, but I do want to give a little bit of context to that tweet. So I had said, hey, here's what we know so far about the Okta breach. And I was on a webinar with John Strand, and it was the Wild West, or I'm sorry, Black Hills, talking about InfoSec news. And we had a good old time just chatting about things, and we were trying to put the whole Okta breach into context. And the next day, Okta provided a little more clarification on what had happened. And some of the things that we said weren't right. Like, we were just guessing based off of what they told us. And there were some people who said some hurtful things. Now, I want to be clear, I did not take offense. I just was like, man, it's kind of a spicy take. And they were throwing shade for, like, oh, well, you got this wrong. I wonder what else you get wrong. Like, why you should feel bad, and why do you even get on the internet and make these pronouncements? Well, first of all, I didn't say, I want the record to show, I didn't say, like, oh, you need to throw out Okta, you need to do this, you need to do that. I said, hey, here's the things that I'm asking. Here's the questions that I got. And I've been very critical of Okta. I am not an Okta fanboy. I used to love Okta. Now, much less so. But I don't understand it. Like, it legit, I am confused, and I don't understand why somebody would not make public comments and then snipe at somebody who does. And part of the reason that I let that out is I don't want somebody to receive those sorts of DMs and go, oh, you know what? Maybe I should be quiet too. Because I can't help but think that that's like that's a horrible way to live, one, but two, like, who benefits from that? Like, is that like some sort of long-term psyops to, like, get people to shush up and not give good advice? Like, I don't know. It doesn't make a lick of sense. And so basically I was just sticking my tongue out at them and saying, hey, I'm not buying your arguments that I need to be quiet.
Right. So this is the weird thing about Okta is we have spent, I don't know how many, almost a decade now, telling people to get rid of passwords. We need to go to SSO. We need to go to 2FA. We need to go to federated logins. We need to go OAuth flows, etc., to get rid of the passwords. And now we've got companies that are moving to getting away from passwords. So, there's really Okta and Duo. I don't know. There are other 3P vendors out there, but those are the only ones that come to mind right now for terms of that. I mean, you could use an OAuth flow like a Google Drive or an Apple or a Microsoft login or something like that. But when Okta got breached, I got a couple of emails, and here's one I'll read specifically, and this won't take too long because it's not hard. But it's I'm gonna redact the person's name. He says, "Hi, my name is," and it is a he, CEO and co-founder of blah company. I have a PhD in computer engineering, and I'm an expert in the identity and authentication space, and I've been running a team building identity and security technology for the past X number of years. I'm sure you've heard about the breach of Okta and their sourcing partner, Sitel. We've been working closely with blah for years, solving the security challenges of business process outsourcers like Sitel struggle with, so I'm deeply familiar with this space and particular companies. Both Okta and Sitel are best-in-class security orgs, and they've been getting dumped on and publicly shamed. A lot of mud is being slung. The slingers certainly do not have better security than these two. This is not an organizational or procedural failure. They did not make mistakes. Their teams weren't slacking, didn't cut corners or budgets that would have prevented this. For as long as we've had digital identities, the user has been a part of that security. If the user is compromised, the digital ID fails. This paradigm is what failed, as if all identity security is a square peg and this kind of event is a round hole. This should be about coming together to find a solution to a problem no one can solve right now, not pointing fingers and crying shame when it could easily have been any logo in the headlines. I would be happy to hop on a call and discuss with you in more detail. If it's helpful, let me know a time that works best for you. So there's a lot going on here. I get these things all the time, like, oh, I'd like to come on to your show, or hi, I'm a PR company, here's a white guy who wants to come on the show and stuff. Normally I just, turn them away because they're trying to bring on ML and blockchain. But this person wants to come on to defend both companies, and I don't know what his I don't know what his deal is. I've never seen anybody go like, well, I'm trying to get on to talk about, defending these companies. It seems like I don't get it. So that's what made the whole thing about Okta really weird for me, because I've never actually seen somebody go, I'm here to just speak about in defense of Google, and because they're awesome, and they really get put upon and everything. And I'm like, how is Okta? How is Okta so much different than any other data breach that we've had in that respect? And to have somebody like this come on and want to come on a show and talk about these kind of things, it just boggled my mind enough that I did not delete this email, because I was like, what the hell is this? So that's it's just really weird how, and the problem is we are suggesting to people to move to these solutions, and now they're becoming the single point of failure for a lot of companies, where it's like we've put so much into it, kind of like when Facebook got hacked, or they blew up their BGP routes, and it screwed their building control systems and everything off. So Okta has become a single point of failure for a lot of companies because they've eschewed the password and using this for IDM. So maybe we have some of ourselves to blame here on this by trying to vehemently get rid of something like a password.
Well, there's a ton to unpack here. As you said.
Go ahead, please. Please, I'm sorry.
So first of all, I think that you know what? I'll tell you this. I'm going to dump on Okta because I really don't feel that they've done a good job of explaining what's happening.
You're right. Uh-huh. Yep.
And that's the thing that I wish that they would be held to a little more account. And I'm not seeing as much pressure there as I would like. I also, though, there's something kind of weird, and I don't know if this person uses Okta or not that wrote that mail, but I do know that there's something weird that's shifted in the last couple of years. And this was starting pre-pandemic. I would say like 2-3 years before the pandemic. So we're about year 5. It seems now that a lot of IT people turned into truck people. You know what I mean? Like, right. Ford is Betty, Chevy. Oh no,
right.
Dodge. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? You're a communist if you don't like this. And it just feels to me like people have got like real tribal of late, and Okta can do no wrong. Microsoft Azure AD can do no wrong,
right.
And I don't get it. They're all varying shades of broken, and you just got to find one that works for you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Mr. Betcher. You work more in a corporate environment than I do.
No, I really agree with what Mick said. They are varying shades of broken, and you got to find the right one that fits your needs, price, organization, support level, that sort of thing. I mean, that's all it is, really.
Right. So I'm reading through your backlog of tweets here, and somebody had also had mentioned that there is some communications issues here, and what I didn't quite understand with the timeline that was put out by I think his name is Bradbury. They waited 2 months for the forensic report from the third party to come back. What I'm wondering is, did the third party do something like promise them that absolutely nothing happened, and we're just doing the forensics report to verify that was the case? And then it was like, oh shit, now we've got a report that says otherwise. We were hoping for the best case scenario so that this would have just been swept under the rug, because this is the trust issue, right? People are now like wondering if Okta is something they want to continue using. There's been numerous hand waving, and people are like, oh, you've completely destroyed my trust in your product, I'm going to move, which is bullshit. But you see those kinds of responses and you kind of laugh. But
so let's go over the timeline. Like they were breached, allegedly breached,
right,
2 months ago.
Right. Well, their third party was. And
Yeah, third party was. And there's part of the timeline that I actually think they should be pushing a little bit more, because my understanding is that one of the third party engineers got popped, and this account enrolled for an MFA that was new, and it was suspect, and they kicked it up as suspicious. They reviewed the alert, and then they suspended the account, and it was all within a very reasonable time frame.
Yeah,
like
within 12
I think
hours.
yeah, like I think that's actually well, but they even identified it and kicked it up as a security issue in under like 20 minutes.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're right. I was looking at the 1800 part. So, 2318 on the 20th of January by 0018, which was 18 minutes after midnight. On the Okta service desk added to the incident containing the user's account. And then by ODark 30, they terminated the Okta's user sessions and suspended the account immediately. So there you go.
Yeah, I see. This is such a weird case, because the act one of this that we know so far, man, that's actually pretty baller. And I think that might have set them on a wrong path of thinking how they handled things. Like, oh, we're aces, we got this handled, we're good. And then it looks like they kind of fell asleep. And that's where that 2 months time window gets really hard to defend. And I don't understand. I really do not understand why you would crush it and respond so quickly and so well, and then pooch it so hard. And the whole thing where it really hops the rails for me is in that report they call out that they have analyzed 125,000 logs.
Right, I saw that too.
Like, what the hell? What in the hell does that mean? Like, I can generate 125,000 logs like that if y'all want. Like, what are those logs? Like, oh man, I'm gonna get an aneurysm.
Depends on what that is. Is it a log or is it an event that they keep calling a log?
Right.
People get those confused all the time.
Well, but anyway, like, just talking raw numbers, man, I could turn on event tracing for Windows and generate that in under 5 minutes flat, and there's zero context on that. Like,
So my question was with that 125,000 logs, and I mentioned this during earlier streams this week and last. Did they maybe pare it down? Maybe they had 5 million log entries, and they pared it down to the 125,000 that were, important enough. So having worked at the company I work at for the last year and having to deal with PR people, they're trying to keep this as short and sweet as possible. And it seems like that they might have forgotten or left out a few things, or, they didn't want to get too technical with folks. And they said, well, we'll just say 125,000 because that sounds like a lot. Now, for folks in InfoSec, especially folks who do incident response or, knows a little bit about logging, 125,000 log entries is nothing. It's 100% zero. They could have been 70 million logs, but it would have been like, maybe it would have been too much to grok for Joe Six-Pack average person in this case. I had some issues with some of the math, like, how did they pare this down to 366 customers, and which is 2.5% of the customers in Okta. So, and then I read another part where there was like, they have 50,000 or so customers, and that represents some. There was a bit jankiness with the math and stuff. And what I'm trying to figure out is why was such a specific number here, whereas, in other places in this press release, they get real generic, like more than 125,000. Okay, so they say more than 125,000. So is it 126,500 or is it really 5 million? It's real janky. And having worked with some PR folks in the past, 6 months, you start seeing weird shit like this where it's like, you can understand now why things sometimes don't make a lot of sense when they get pushed out.
Right.
But yeah. Let me see if there's been any updates on the Okta blog. So they updated the post on the 20th.
Just blown out of proportion just because they are a security company. I mean, security companies get probably breached worse than this.
Yeah.
Right? Is it just bad PR on their part?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Now, I realize this is armchair quarterbacking. I want to be very clear about that.
Right.
But
right.
I do feel that, they could have been out in front of this message a lot more.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing was it's been exacerbated by the web conferences that they did, or the webinars that they did. I heard that there was one that happened like early in the morning Pacific time, and then they did pretty much the same thing again at 4 p.m. the next day.
Yep.
They just read, it was like
day.
a 7-minute webinar. They read pretty much, I think they said the blog post statement that was on the website, and that was it. And I'm like, that's not helpful. You should have question and answer session, or you should have a reactive QA so that you can, talk to media, or, maybe invite some media folks on who can, like a press conference. I mean, freaking president can have a press conference and get grilled by media. Why can't they get a reactive QA or something like that where they can say, they'll have those kinds of questions answered?
Yeah. So I don't run Okta, but if I did, what I would have done is those 2 webinars would have been handled very, very, very differently. Number one, they need a visual timeline of here's exactly what happened. Here's what we know. If there's any unknowns, be honest. Say like, hey, here's some things that we're still running down. And the fact that they've not been sharing that, like that they've got it all figured out, that kind of worries me, because having worked a lot of incidents over my career, you don't know what you don't know for quite some time. It takes a long, long time to get down to here's everything that we got. And I don't know. I feel like this really reads like PR and lawyers have been running point on this. And like, I just need more context. I need more understanding.
So Mick, do you need more context and understanding because you've got customers asking you these questions as being a consultant, and you're like, yeah.
Well, here's a perfect one. On Friday, had a client call me up and they said, "Hey, we haven't been emailed by Okta. Does that mean we're okay?" Because that's what they said in the webinar. They said, "We will reach out to you if there's problems."
Right.
How about like, hey, just want to let y'all know, we looked through the logs. You weren't one of the 366 folks that got impacted or orgs. And like that, I don't know. Like, I just, I hope that when I have my moment of truth that I do a little bit better. I don't know, but I just feel like there's a lot of like lessons to learn off of this one.
Do you think that this is cause for concern from consultancies that have said, "Hey, you should use Okta. They're a good tool." So you've got companies out there that are third-party solution identifiers, or solution coordinators or resellers of Okta, and now that are they getting more or less information than the public are about the issue? I see this as a reputational kind of damage thing where it's like, you told us Okta was good, and now Okta's been breached. WTF? Does that mean you're trash too?
Well, I think Justin Elzy put it best when he said, look, most orgs expect to get breached, right? That just happens. That's part and parcel. The issue is how you address it. What do you do? Do you own it? Do you take changes? Do you learn from it? And, I feel like if Okta's learning. I don't know what they're learning. I would love to hear, hey, here's the changes that we've made to our environment.
Right.
Or here's the ideas that here's the changes we're going to make.
Right.
I'm not hearing any of that.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, this isn't the
Are
first
they
company.
saying that in some ways they really weren't breached? It was a third party,
Well,
and it's
I
not
think
really that important, or they didn't take it that way. And now by not saying stuff, you allow the media to sort of fill in the blanks for them, and then the PR thing comes into play, and now they're playing catch up and all that, but they still think internally there's no big deal because we weren't breached. It was someone else, but they had access to stuff. They had access to some of our customers. It was only 300 out of, a million, whatever it was.
so. Here's my take on this. Whether or not you I know this might alienate some of the folks, but I definitely love sports, right? And what I liken this over and over again to is a team might have won a game, but they're not going back and looking at the tape. They're not reviewing, like, hey, if we ran this play differently, we could have done better. And I'm not getting that from them. That's the problem that I'm having, is that there's no sorts of, hey, here's what we've learned. Here's
Right.
the only thing that I think that they learned was that 2-month window while they were waiting for the IR report to be done, they said, oh, that was a bit long. That was one of the things that was said in that webinar when I listened in on the morning of it. It was 2 in the same day, and in the morning when they were like, yeah, that one was too long
Our
to
bad.
wait.
Right.
Click, and it was done. I don't understand that. Given their position and the outsized role they play in a lot of org security stacks, what really should have happened was, hey, here's what we know, here's what we're working on, and now I am going to answer every damn question until y'all are satisfied. And if there's
Right.
repeats, I'm going to say, hey, that's a repeat. Here's the answer. Because given what they do, you need them to stand and deliver. And I'm not advising anybody to rip and replace them, but I don't think of them as the Okta that I used to recommend with both thumbs up. Now I'm kind of
Yeah. The one thing that I reread through some of this. Hey, Chemist Security, how you doing? So thank you for following us. One of the chats says it's weird hearing this at regular speed instead of at 1.5 speed. I appreciate that. I do listen to some podcasts at 1.5 speed.
I'll talk a little bit faster so that you can have that experience, okay? If that's all right.
No, I want to slow it down a little and make it non-listenable. No. Thank you, Chemist Security. Also, I'd like to thank Martin Blank and Netter86 for following us as well. Little housekeeping there, sorry. So the press release says, I'm greatly disappointed by the long period of time that transpired between our notifications to Sitel and the issuance of the complete investigation report. Upon reflection, once we received the summary report, we should have moved more swiftly to understand its implications. So it took almost 2 months to make a response. And one thing I would like to bring up is they really only moved on this because Lapsus shared the screenshots. That's in my opinion, that's it. If they had not shared those screenshots, we would not have even potentially known to this day. And for those of you listening, they arrested 7 people who may or may not have been part of lapses, but the people that were mentioned in several of the news articles are not stupid, and they know their business. So if they said it's them, I believe them, Allison Nixon being one of them. So, but yeah, so they would have sat on this longer, I believe, because there was no reason to rush it. Yeah, and I think some of the comments on Twitter and stuff were like, were they notifying customers on the back end, or were they doing anything? Maybe the forensic report was going to be done next week, and then it'll be done next week, and then it'll be done next week, and then by this time they're like, oh shit, what are we going to do now? It's been a month and they haven't given us anything. Daily calls like, where the F is where the F is that report? Oh, we'll get it to you next week. It's rough. They said the screenshots that Lapsus gave were not in the report, and they were taken from a support engineer from Sitel. The scenario is analogous to walking away from your computer at a coffee shop, whereby a stranger virtually sat down to your machine and was using the mouse and keyboard. So, what, they get hacked by TeamViewer or something like that? Sounds like they had,
guessing they had like some sort of like RDP type style access. Like I don't know if it was TeamViewer or VNC or whatever, but like it's.
Go ahead. No, I said it's interesting to see some of the back end stuff that they're talking about here. They say, majority of support engineering tasks are performed using an internally built application called SuperUser SU, which can perform basic functions, does not provide godlike access. So they pretty much had like Pridesk on a box that allowed them to do additional stuff as a support person. So, Anyway, that was my only comment there. So, please continue.
Well, my take is, if that analogy holds, that it's like you're at a coffee shop and somebody had keyboard and mouse access, I would want to know. That's right. The long and short of it. And that's where I think they don't get it. Like, they just keep on minimizing it. It's like, oh, well, it would be like that. Yeah. You know what? I'd want to know. Tell me. And maybe they were. Maybe they did notify the 366. And if you're at one of those orgs and you were notified before the pop, like, that's awesome. If they've got you on some sort of NDA that you can't share, I understand. But I do think it's a little weird that nobody stood up and said, hey, we did get the notification. I would have expected that to have come out. Right.
Yeah. Part of some of the streams that I've been doing earlier this month, things like NVIDIA came out, Ubisoft getting hacked, Vodafone and those, and then this came out, and the only thing I could think of was, well, that's how they got in, because everybody was like, we don't know how NVIDIA got popped, or we don't know this thing, and I was like, could it possibly be that they were owned, because Lapsus was involved with NVIDIA, and Lapsus was involved with the Microsofts, the Azure stuff. They were all involved with this, and I was like, they're burning their ace, if you will, and then I think they overplayed their hand by putting out that computer engineer picture. I think they could have continued getting away with it if they had not done that. I think that, and having poor OPSEC, but that's beside the point. But yeah, it's interesting, all of the systems that were owned, like NVIDIA and those, and getting their code dropped and all that. And maybe we'll see that in the postmortem, that NVIDIA was, kind of like when SolarWinds happened, Mandiant was like, oh, we got hacked. And they're like, no, wait, we didn't get hacked. SolarWinds got hacked, but we got hacked because of it, or something like that. This is exactly like SolarWinds all over again.
Well, we'll find out.
Right. Well, it feels like the same kind of playbook. So, I wish I had a water break, but I'll just have to breathe. One of the things I've learned during all the streaming was I will forget to breathe sometimes. So either I have to remind myself to breathe, or I have a big thing of water that I sit down and I do the stuff with. So let me see. So you had
It's okay to have dead air. It's really okay. Let's do 5 seconds of dead air. I just want to see you squirm. Do it.
And that was it for part 1 of our discussion with Mick Douglas. I'd like to thank Mick for coming along. If you want to follow him on Twitter, he is at BetterSafetyNet. You can follow him and check out all his insights and his not hot takes, but definitely a well-reasoned and well-mannered take, and comes from years and years of experience in information security, and he's seen a lot. You can definitely tell from his point of view and his measured responses to some of my comments about Okta and those. So go check him out at BetterSafetyNet. You can also check him out. He will be in San Diego at SAN Security West 2022, teaching Sec 555 from May 5th to May 10th. I don't know if there's still tickets available. He's also going to be in Denver, Colorado, June 13th through the 18th, teaching Sec 504. So, there's plenty of opportunities for you to catch and hang out with him if you want to, enjoy some SANS courses. So go check those out on SANS website. You can follow Mr. Betcher at BetcherPwned on Twitter. He's also the developer of log-md.com. LogMD is a tool for Windows forensics. I believe we will mention it at least once during this show because we're talking about logging and incident response with Mr. Betcher and Mick. So you can check that out. Ms. Berlin, you can find her at InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR. You can join us every week, at least multiple times a week on our Twitch stream. If you go to twitch.tv/breaksec, you can check out our schedule. We're doing some Hack the Box challenges. We're doing the Hack the Box Academy, some Try Hack Me stuff, just general hanging out, learning things, getting some CPEs for our CISP and what have you. You can also just join our audio podcasts at breakingsecurity.com. And you can follow me at Brian Break on Twitter, and our podcast and Twitch stream Twitter handle is at BreakSec. So hope everyone has a great week. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to one another. And, as we're fond of saying around here, you need to take care of yourself because, you're the only you have. I will talk to you next time.